everybody. Welcome to another exciting, fun-filled, hair-raising episode of Radiorama, where, as the name implies, I show you how to work on radios and sometimes televisions. And today we have a nice tabletop component stereo Zenith. Of course, I already forgot the model number because I know that's really important to some people. It is a model MJ1035-I AM/FM. I've never worked on one of these before, and a lot of these are missing the companion speaker because you need the other speaker for it to be stereo. I don't know what's inside. I'm not sure if it's got two output transformers and it's true stereo. It says it's stereophonic FM, so I'm guessing it probably has a decoder built in. I don't know what its working condition is. I've got it plugged into my Variac, and I'm going to monitor how much current it draws, because if it starts drawing a lot of current, then you know there's a short somewhere. But I'm bringing it up slowly, and so far it's not really drawing much. Let's put it at 50%. Drawing very little. If there were a short, we'd probably know it by now. So bring it up the rest of the way. It's going to get recapped anyway, so got a little bit of hum. Looks like we don't have this speaker plugged in. There we go. It works, but obviously the components inside, in particular the capacitors, are tired and need to be replaced. So I'm going to unplug it, and we're going to pull the back off and take a look around inside to see what we're up against. Alright, well, as I suspected, this is definitely a true hot chassis set. You can even see here it says the chassis of this receiver is directly connected to the side. One side of the AC line, and it has an interlocking plug here to make sure that you disconnect everything. And this looks like basically a beefed up variant of one of their premium FM AM radio sets. And we have indeed two separate output transformers, and we have a 50C5 per channel, and then we have a 12AX7. And let's get this back off completely. Actually, it looks like this is going to have to become unsoldered. That's okay. That's true. It's a gold painted chassis. That's interesting because Zenith painted a lot of their chassis from the 30s and 40s gold, and then they stopped. But I haven't seen a gold chassis from the 50s or 60s or whenever this thing was made. It looks like they have kind of a large-ish speaker and a tweeter. I'm going to assume that maybe a similar size speaker is in the companion, so that it'll sound balanced out, but I don't know. Let's desolder these wires, and then we can pull the rest of the back off, and this chassis is going to have to come out for me to work on it, but no biggie. Alright, well, chassis came out. I thought I was going to break the knobs trying to loosen them up. They were stuck on there. And what they've done here is they've even gone as far as to put stops on the knobs to prevent you from getting your fingers around the shafts here, even though it looks like, I'm going to guess these shafts are probably isolated. These aren't. These are going directly to chassis, but then again, you have these knobs that can't be removed. So that's probably why these come off. These don't. The other thing they've done is there are nylon pieces here where the bolts that hold the chassis in go through. So again, it's physical isolation. It looks like maybe this was worked on. I can't read what that says. It says open something. Something DC, K7WW, K1WW. I'm guessing it's repair notes. I'm not sure what that refers to. Not really seeing any replacement parts. That might be a replacement. We've got all of the original electrolytics obviously installed. And this value has crap oozing out from underneath it, so that cap is leaking its electrolytic compound. Kind of an interesting dial design here. We have these two pilot lamps, and they backlight either a orange or blue piece of plastic. So I'm guessing when you switch the bands, it turns one of those lights on. So you'll know what band you're on. The chassis is not painted. It's kind of got this interesting copperish / brassy looking plating. Here is our 3 electrolytic values, and it says 150 microfarads, 150 microfarads, and 60 microfarads. So I don't have those values specifically. I'm going to have to put 2 capacitors together to get to that value. But before I do anything, it looks like it's not been anywhere damp. It's just pretty dusty. So I'm going to take this outside and dust it off, and then wipe it off, and then we'll proceed with the electrical overhaul. Well, that cleaned up really nicely. It looks like it just came out of the factory. It's interesting. Zenith was extremely reluctant to go the PC board route, while most manufacturers by this time period had. That isn't to say they had a little bit of a hybrid thing going on here. They have these boards that have little solder connections on top. See how stable that is. Can I lay this thing on its upside down? Probably. So there's a decent amount to replace in here. You don't need to worry about these ceramic capacitors unless they're physically damaged. They don't tend to go bad. Likewise, these brown and orange drops, they don't need to be replaced. These do. These bumblebee caps, they are just paper caps that happen to be in a plastic case. And then these little electrolytics, they need to be replaced, as well as that electrolytic. But I'm going to start first with the 3 electrolytics that are in this can. And what's the shape? We got square and triangle for the big values, and then blank for the small value. So this value here and this here are both 150 microfarads. And since this is all chassis ground, I could relocate the ground for this one easily. It's just a single lead, and that lead goes to here, which then goes to this diode. It makes me wonder, is that the rectifier? It sure would seem like it, because it's coming directly off of B+, I think. Yep, B+ output. Let's see if there's any, like a 35W4 or anything like that on this. Nope, there's no rectifier tube. So that diode is, in fact, the rectifier. So this must be a much later model, because earlier models would have had a selenium rectifier, not a whatever this is. This is probably germanium. and it's probably just perfectly fine because the set did work. So I'm going to have to do to get to 150 microfarads for these two guys is to double up some capacitors. We'll have a 100 microfarad capacitor and a 50 microfarad capacitor stuck together. That's as close as I'm going to get. And that will give us our 150. Add 2 and 2 together, you get your value. Alright, so I'll shut up, quit yakking, and install some components. Alright, so we've got the electrolytics replaced. And what I try to do is keep the electrolytic leads as short as possible so that they don't wiggle around. So you see we have a 100 and a 50 microfarad cap. You know, it's not super critical that you're off by a little bit, because I guarantee the original electrolytics in there probably don't measure anything close to what they are supposed to. In fact, I'm curious. Can I still measure these things? Let's see. Especially the one that looked kind of crumbly. What does it measure? Hey, I was supposed to measure 150 microfarads and it was reading 69. So half of what it was supposed to measure. So this thing's probably gonna, what was the V-loss on that thing? I didn't check the V-loss. I didn't read it. Crap, let me put it back on the circuit again. It's only losing 2.1%. That's nothing. ESR is not horrible, but it doesn't matter. That capacitor is no longer in the circuit. Before I get too much further, I want to test it to make sure it's still working. There's nothing worse than restoring something that kind of already works only for you to mess it up and it not work. And it's best to like be able to retrace your steps before you get too far. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hook it up to the speaker and see if she still works. All right, still works.
Tomorrow, 6.5 home. I just think it.
All right, good. You definitely want to run this on an isolation transformer. Absolutely. Because that is directly connected to the line. And I'm being an idiot, and I'm in the sandals. But anyway, we're well on our way to having this work. But one thing I do notice is that the neon light for this doesn't seem to be working. Now, I don't know if maybe it's because the electrolytics were super tired and it wasn't actually getting true FM stereo for some reason. I don't know. But we have quite a few other capacitors to replace in this puppy before we can consider it electrically rebuilt. And then what we're going to do is, because this actually does have a stereo input for audio, we're going to run audio through it. But because there's a hot chassis involved, that weird noise is my cat. Olive? Is that you making that squeaky noise? She knows how to get my attention. Makes her weird squeaky noises. Alright, let's talk about bumblebee capacitors for a little bit. The way that you read these guys is kind of like the way you read resistors. Each color has a value. And so this reads red equals 2 and 2. And then orange is the multiplier. And then this is the tolerance. Doesn't matter about that. We're going to replace these guys anyway. So this reads as 22,000 picofarads, which is 0.02 microfarads. There's 2 of these in the circuit. Those need to come out. The other capacitors are just marked with the value on it. This is the capacitor coming off of the audio input. That's probably serving as probably a 2 ground capacitor, so it's a pretty high value. What would happen if you were to touch, because I remember as a kid, like we had record players that would do this, like if you're in your bare feet in a concrete floor and you were to like plug something in and touch that cap is saving you from getting all the current that's coming out of the outlet, but you'd still get just a tiny bit of a jolt. Alright, so I decided to pull one of these 0.02 rated microfarad capacitors and test it. It's supposed to be 0.02 microfarads. It's measuring 31 nanofarads. So as you can see, that's way off. So we've installed a new one here, and likewise we'll replace the second one. as well as that sucker as well. All right, well, I replaced the rest of the capacitors. Actually, I forgot that one. I tested a few of these, and these little electrolytics are all testing as unknown or damaged, which means they're probably shorted. This one, on the other hand, it's interesting. As you can see, it's got a little bit of stuff oozing out of the end, and it tested fine. That doesn't mean you should leave it in there, but... So we'll replace this last one, and then we're going to add the audio input. This already has audio input, but since it's a hot chassis, we need to run it through some isolation transformers. And this is going to be especially tricky because this is stereo, so I'll need two. One for each channel. I don't think I've ever done that before because all other stereos that I've worked on had a power transformer, and so you can just run directly in. If you have a hot chassis, you need to make sure and isolate the user from any potential incoming current. Even though it's got this cap going through it, you still don't want people to get zapped. That's very unpleasant. Okay, so here is how we're going to add the audio safety protection. So this is our incoming audio. We have right and left channel, and then ground, which goes currently through this capacitor. Capacitor also probably filters out a little bit of AC noise, so I'm going to leave it there. It's probably serving a purpose. So what we're going to do is this. We've got our two isolation transformers. This is the primary side, and this side is the secondary side, and we're going to run audio through the secondary, and then the primary goes to chassis, which would be, again, these two guys going to feeding up to here, and then we're going to have shared grounds that'll go to not chassis ground but through the cap, but this is ground, and then we'll have the common ground tied together for the incoming audio. Crap. Anyway, hope that makes sense. It'll probably make more sense once I've got it actually installed. But we're going to put them probably right here. We want to get them as close as possible to the audio so they don't have to run this that far, because the longer you run your audio cable, the more chances you might have of having some noise pollution, and we don't want that. That'd be unpleasant. Alright, so we have our isolation transformers installed. The ground is, of course, now going grounded via the shared common grounds on the isolation transformer. And then we have a right and left channel, and right and left incoming channel. I'm trying to think here electrically if this is going to work. I guess there's only one way to find out, which is to hook it up and see if we get audio coming out of both channels. Well, that totally sounds like crap. Need to figure out what's going on there. That ain't working at all. Bummer! Alright, I found out what I did here. It was really stupid. So, I don't have the ground. I'm just thinking out loud here. This ground needs to go here. Or rather, it needs to come from here to there, and then this needs to go there. So I need to move this cap up here. I need to do a few things, and this configuration is incorrect, so let me make some adjustments here. Okay, let's try it this way. So now we have the ground swapped going to the right places. I'm amazed I had any sound coming out at all, but let's hook it up again and see if that fixed the problem. Alright, that works much, 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 much better. Alright, so I need to clean the controls. They're pretty dirty. I want to lubricate the tuning mechanism so that it's smoother, and I want to work on the cabinet a little bit. It's not great. It's not horrible. I don't know what to do about this. This is delaminating, so that needs to be glued back down, which means the knobs are going to have to come out. Oh boy. Anyway, we're getting there. Now that we're back underneath again, let's go ahead and clean these controls out. Being stereo, there's stacked pots, right and left channels. And yes, I'm using WD-40. like a debate about that. It's kind of like which way does the toilet paper go kind of discussion. Some people insist that like if you do this to your electronics, you're going to burn in hell. But I've never had a problem with it. And I use it, yes, I use it on my personal electronics too. Cleaning all the stereo systems in my house. And all the stuff I do for the museum for the display pieces. So we want to flush that out real good. And likewise, we want to clean the selector switch. All right. Let's flip it over. And what we want to do next is clean up a tuning condenser. This is odd. I wonder if the FM tuning is underneath. Yep, there's slugs under here for FM tuning. This is AM. And we're going to use my handy bottle of Zoom spout oil. It's got a little nose on it, or a little thing. I'm just going to come in here and get the bearings in the front and the back in this middle surface area. And let's see. Just want to get a scotch right here where that shaft goes into the chassis. And that already feels a lot better. You don't have to do this, but it just makes it feel nicer to the user. I'm going to put it on our controls a little bit. Again, so they'll turn a little bit nicer. And just kind of work that in. There we go, that feels a lot nicer, moving more smoothly. So now that we're done with all the electronics on this set, it's time to address the cabinet. I have to figure out a way how to get these knobs off of here. I definitely want to retain the safety features on this, even though I had a hell of a time getting them off of there, so they're not easy to get off. Like I had to pry them off with a screwdriver and I almost broke them. Kind of a cloudy day today. That's nice. We haven't had any rain here in 8 months. But it's not going to rain. I can take these out and put some furniture stuff on them to clean up the woodwork. I was able to pull the knobs off, and as soon as I did, this flew up. So clearly the glue that held this on is not gluing anymore. And I can't get this off without removing this. And I can't get this off without taking the entire front off. Oops! Which is a little more complicated, because what we need to do is unloosen all those bolts, and then the whole front end will come off, and I should be able to get to the back of that so I can pull it out of there, and then I can pull that aluminum plate off. Okay, I was able to pull out the neon light here, and I was going to try to peel this off, but it's actually sticking pretty good, and so I'm afraid I'm going to bend this. If I bend this, you'll never get that kink out of there, and it'll look like crap. So instead I'm going to try to get glue somehow underneath this, maybe putting some super glue on a piece of paper and sliding it in there. Anyway, it's not ideal, but oh, how annoying. I was able to glue it all back down again, and in the meantime also glued my fingers together, which means I'll have to wear it off. I'm really good at doing crap like that, but this is much better. So what I need to do now is let this just dry out for a little bit, and then I'll clean this front off. I clean the front of this before I attach it back to the cabinet. And speaking of the cabinet, I'm going to take it outside and use some furniture restoration products to bring it back. It just showed up. It's my friend Waffles. Hey Waffles, how you doing? Meow. Meow. Hey boy. I don't know how old Waffles is, but he's very skinny. Need to give him some food. We're not sure about him, whether he is a stray or someone else's pet, but he comes around here every day or so. All right, Waffles, let's get you some canned cat food. Okay, next stage. I'm going to use some Old English scratch cover. There's not a lot of scratches on this, but you want to sprinkle it on there. And what it does is it kind of evens out the finish. You know, if you've got some imperfections in it, it'll kind of, I don't know what's in this stuff. It's probably stain or something, but it does a great job. And then we're going to let this soak in for a little while. Just going to go over both pieces with this. I'll let it soak for a little while, then we'll follow up with some beeswax to kind of seal it up. Well, these both look instantly better. And so that's going well. I'm going to let that sit for a while, but while I'm waiting for that to kind of marinate in Old English. What is up with my cats today? Hey, buddy. How you going, Kemper? Kemper. Yeah. He's my Maine Coon. He probably weighs about 25, 30 pounds. He's a big boy. Anyway, I'm using a little simple green here, and I put it on a piece of paper towel, and I can't do this one-handed. I've had a few people comment and say, like, handheld videos suck. I agree they do suck, but I'm too cheap to buy a proper setup, so deal with it. We're going to go over this whole thing. You see all that crap that came off of there? It's probably like cigarette tar and fingers and grime and stuff from over 50 years of use. So we're going to clean this up real good and then stick this sucker back together again. Sounds pretty damn good. That was with the Bluetooth running in. Let's go to radio.
Are you kidding?
I'm just curious.
Hello, this is Mary Tilson, and this is
Michael Stipe.
Art around us.
It's
Anyway, that concludes this episode of Radiorama. Hopefully, maybe you learned something, or if not, you were entertained by my stupid antics. But until the next time something shows up on my workbench, I'll see you guys next time. Adios.